In this video, I continue the Aristeia painting series with my final model, Lei Gong. Chen Zubai was a Dao Ying operative for Yu Qing's invincible army who was quickly noticed by his superiors for his tenacity at following orders and showing no fear for daring and reckless action in combat. Yu Qing needed a symbol for their soldier citizens, the invincible army, and Chen Zubai fitted the profile like a glove. Not only for his confidence and good looks, but also his prowess. He was outfitted for Aristeia with the best technology money could buy, and he took on a name that was more than a man, but a symbol. Lei Gong, the Thunder God. A legend from ancient China, now reborn as a legend of the Hexadome. Okay, so Lei Gong brings us its take on rollerball in Aristeia, which turns out to be James Caan entering the arena with a shoulder-mounted cannon. With Lei Gong being the poster child for Yu Qing, he wears the orange armor of their military. Painting orange is notoriously difficult to do, but we are going to give it a go. I wanted to figure out how I was going to paint the orange, so I began by using one of the shoulder pads for testing out the colors I would eventually use. I used Corn Red from Citadel for the base coat. I prepared Mephiston Red, Troll Slayer Orange, and Avalon Sunset onto my wet palette with the aim to build up layers from the deep red up to the yellow. Mixing the paints as I went, I was able to gradually stipple to create the blend I was looking for. I chose to use yellow for the lightest highlight as I wanted the orange to be fiery and intense. If you use white for the highlight, it will reduce the intensity of the colors you are painting and create a much more muted effect. Happy with the choice of colors for the orange, I continued with the base coats. Green for the gun and wings, brown for the under armor, and putting in the base skin tones for the face. Once I was happy with the base coats, it was time to get on with the orange. And there was a lot of orange to do. When you have a whole body of armor to paint and you are trying to create blends of light and dark, I find it best to complete one area at a time. This way I can put my full focus into that one area until completion and then move on once I am satisfied. If I tried to do each layer across the entirety of the model at a time, I would get lazy and poor choices for highlights would begin to be very apparent. It is a long and sometimes tedious process, but as each area gets completed, you get a real sense of accomplishment. Although not perfect, this has been my best work yet trying to paint orange, and it was overall not too frustrating. Taking each blend slowly and using yellow for the highlights seemed to make the application of oranges much easier, as I often find them to have poor opacity and can easily get streaky. With the orange finally finished, I looked to the green of the armor. Again, to help keep the intensity, I blended up through Citadel's Moot Green and Uriel Yellow. Instead of stippling, I tried blending in brushstrokes. These paints have a better opacity, and the strokes helped create a fairly smooth blend from the darker green up to the yellow. The contrast between the orange and green was pretty intense, and I was enjoying how much the model just popped. Most of the hard work had been done at this stage, so now I tackled the face. Now, I think the plastic miniatures that Corvus Belli produced for Aristeia are pretty good considering they're pre-assembled, ready to play with. However, Lei Gong's face is only partially visible, and the mold on the plastic is just awful. It was so hard to make out where any of the details were. This meant that painting the eyes was a chore and required some repeated attempts until I was ready to just let them go. The whole face does not look great, and I wanted to do a better job, but the pose of the model hides it already, and I didn't want to risk mucking it up anymore once it was acceptable. As I didn't want the cannon on Lei Gong's back to be completely green, I did want it to have a bit more colour. I had a go at some silver NMM. Using black to grey to white, I had a go, but really didn't like the result. Then, thinking back to Hippolyta and the blue steel NMM I had done, I tried something similar, but started from a much darker base tone. This turned out much better, and it continued the theme of colour intensity in the model. Looking at the brown under armour, I highlighted these with Citadel's XV88 and Avalon's Sunset. I used the same paints for the blue steel NMM to jewel some points around the gun and wings. This was my first attempt at jeweling a model, and the technique is quite simple, even if I have not mastered it yet. The bottom half of the jewel is painted with ever increasing highlights, and then finally the very top highlight is dotted at the top of the jewel, making this rather neat trick of making you see light reflected in a curved glass surface. Finally, I painted the wheels of his roller skates the same as his under armour, and Lei Gong was complete. The model was quite intense in colour, so I painted the base monochromatic with stylized lines free-handed in line with the scenery Lei Gong is standing on. This is about as good as I get with freehand. I was amazed I could even get the lines as straight as I did. So, check out the finished model of Lei Gong, my final Aristeia character. I was really happy to make such an intense colour scheme. I really liked the blue steel NMM on the gun, and the jewel effects came out a lot better than I expected. I do think the orange armour needed a darker red to help separate the links in the armour, and where the face meets the chin strap there needed to be darker lines of shadow. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like the video, hit the subscribe button as it helps me no end. Every subscriber I get gives me one more push of motivation to keep making these videos. Until next time, keep on painting.